50% overall from the field, but he was also 50% from threes. He's 5 of 10.
I know you're out there. It's okay. Stand back there.
No, more than likely, you're going to get that number 1 seed. And so I want Houston to be ranked at number 1 and 8.
Hey, what is up? We are live on the heels of the final regular season game for number 1 ranked Houston and against the Memphis Tigers. And dang, what a crazy win to end the regular season. A walk-off buzzer beater by Jamal Shead after it had been a crazy back-and-forth second half where the Memphis Tigers, give credit, they came out of the halftime locker room. They made adjustments. They gave Houston a run for their money. But then Houston, resilience, culture, toughness, and those were the key phrases post-game, responded with a 10-0 run where they held Memphis scoreless for over 5 minutes in that second half. Big Jack, absolutely. It's time to let's rage. And we'll talk about number 1 Houston 67-65 victory over Memphis. But joining me as always, Dunlap, Kris Gardner of the Houston Round Ball Review. How are y'all doing?
Fantastic, man. I'm ready to hear from Memphis fans. Oh, my bad.
They were leading up to it. They were excited. They were saying that this was going to be a easy win for Memphis after getting Kendrick Davis. They thought that they were going to be able to dethrone Houston. And then after the game, obviously it doesn't represent all Memphis fans, but one Memphis fan, as I was walking towards the media room, towards the basements of the FedEx Forum, was like, well, if the number 1 team in the country struggled to beat us, we'll get them in the conference tournament. So they moved the goalpost, and this very well could be another matchup come this time next week. But we have to start with Jamal Shead, who was phenomenal in this game. And, of course, he hit the shot of the game against the Memphis Tigers. Chris, we've talked about this all season long, where when it came to big shot moments, it always seems like the ball gets into the hands of Jamal Shead. And that's not a coincidence. After the game, Jamal Shead talked about how Coach Sampson has told him he wants the ball in Jamal Shead's hands in late game situations. And today we exactly saw why. Now, we're going to get into the clip later in the show, but when Jamal Shead talked about what was going through his mind in the final seconds, he referenced the Wisconsin game from a season ago. He always references the late game situations. That really was a pivotal key point in his career when it comes to late game execution. He talked about he looked across he scanned the entire court, checked to see if Jarvis was open, checked to see if Marcus was open, saw time was winding down, and then he raised for the shot. And he hit it. I mean, who wants to take it first? What a crazy of a game it was for Jamal Shead.
Go ahead, Dayon.
Man, I think starting with that last shot, it doesn't look like he ever considered passing. I don't think he should have. I think it's undisputed that he's the closer. I think Marcus makes closing plays in crunch time under 2 minutes. He makes momentum, big shots, but in like game deciding plays, the ball is going to be in Jamal Shead's hands, mostly because of his decision making, his ability to make the right decision and make the right play. And just that shot was spectacular. I mean, it was great. He had a great game, getting inside the lane, penetrating, scoring for himself. I think it was a really master class of coaching by both coaches. They both did a really good job of coaching, adjusting, then making more adjustments, 2 adjustments. Man, it was a great basketball game.
I'm scanning through the play-by-play of the stats because I want to see if Jamal, he made the 3 shots he made in the second half might have been the last 3 shots he took. He took a shot to tie the game at 56, and then the floater to put him up by 2, and then, of course, the game winner. But I was glad down the stretch that he was aggressive. A little bit in that second half, the team kind of settled for what Memphis was, how they were defending them. And I don't like that. I don't like when you just settle, allow defense to dictate to you. Jamal can beat his man off the dribble, and he did toward the end.
I don't know if they were settling because the same shots they were getting in the second half, they were making in the first half. So it's just good execution, good ball movement, good quality shots, just not making the shots. And that's when you come into the drought. I don't think that.
We're going to disagree on this one because some of their threes, they were hesitant. I mean, Jarvis traveled twice.
They were open, though.
Right. He was open, but he didn't shoot. Even Marcus with his turnover, some of their turnovers in the second half were careless. They were just hesitant. Marcus threw the ball away because Jamal was not in position. That's not like Marcus. That turnover down the stretch after the timeout when they got stuck in the corner there at the half court line. That's not like Marcus. And everybody who was at the game media-wise, Andy, I'm not sure where you're sitting, Matt Musil for sure said he heard Kelvin Sampson call a timeout and the ref did not give it to him. So that's an issue there because Marcus was stuck right there in the corner. He was stuck, and I'm sure somebody called timeout. Ref didn't give it to him. Then Marcus did a lob pass, and Jarris lost the ball out of bounds. So turnovers in the second half, some of them really uncharacteristic. Marcus had 4, Jarris had 4. Memphis played good defense to a point. Just like the Cougars. I mean, a lot of zone defense from both teams in the second half, which is surprising because both teams hanging their head on man-to-man a lot. But down the stretch, you saw Kendrick make plays for his team. You saw Jamal beat his man off the dribble down the stretch. And that buzzer beater, that was a tough-ass shot he made, man. So,
it was.
It was money shot for him. So culture wins. And, Memphis fans can move the goalpost all they want to. Houston beat them again. Next.
Well, next is going to be possibly next week, but where these two teams could possibly see themselves down the road. But Chris and Dan, to kind of add on to your point, when it comes to, especially going back to the first half, what Houston really excelled in against the Memphis Tigers was being able to get in the paint, and that kind of was like the weak spot to the Memphis Tigers' defense, whether it be from passing into their bigs or driving. And something that Kelvin Sampson said after the game is kind of the emphasis for the guards heading into this game was to drive and pass, not necessarily drive and score. So that might have factored into in the second half. Maybe some of the players seemed hesitant to take a few shots, but I think a lot of the credit has to go to Memphis, where they just seemed like they were swarming all over the place. And they give credit to the Tigers. There was some adjustment that they made at halftime, and it gave Houston fits. On the flip side, you guys mentioned the zone and how these two teams were known for man principles. Kelvin Sampson, after the game, talked about it too, and he said it was an extra wrinkle that they wanted to add to this matchup. It was kind of a counter because, like you said, both of these teams are known for their man defense. That's really where they hang their hat on. So they wanted to try something to see if it could throw it off, and it absolutely worked because Memphis couldn't score on Houston for 5+ minutes in the second half.
And not only that, I think you do that because both teams are going to prepare so much for each other's man-to-man defense. When you throw that zone, it kind of creates rhythm and force them to think. And it's such a masterful job between both coaches in doing that because you playing both teams have elite guards who can beat each other off the dribble. So it's hard to keep the ball in front of you and out of the paint. That's why both teams went into the zone because they had trouble doing that in spurts, which created different offenses. And I think that just shows Houston's ability to win the game, whether it's a slow, methodical game because the zone slows the game down because it forces less passes, it stagnates the ball, and forces more outside shots. And so when Houston, and on the counter that, it makes them play more in the half-court set. And I think their ability to win, whether it's a fast transition game or in a slow, methodical game, really stood out to me. But both coaches making those adjustments, going zone, recognizing their man-to-man defense wasn't a good matchup for each team because they both have quality guards.
And the Cougs went 3-2 zone, so that's really unique. Usually, if you go zone, it's it's a 2-3 variety or 1-2-2. So they went 3-2 on the perimeter. But salute to Tremont Mark. He came out, set the tone early in their first half. Coach Sampson, it looks like he went with perimeter to beat the Tigers. Juwan Roberts had 0 field goal attempts. 0. That's partly Shed, Tremont, Marcus. Some of that is Memphis defense, but Cougs made little to no effort to go to the post with Juwan.
I think that's 100%.
They trapped Juwan, making give up the ball, but also Juwan usually gets some putback layups. He didn't even get that to get a shot attempt. So, I mean, he had one of those games where, all right, Juwan, you got to crash the boards offensively at least. Do something.
Now, he had a good game. The defense wasn't going to allow him to beat him. I think the defense dictated that because he had 20 and 10 last game. Every single time he touched it in the post, they double him, and he made the right play. In times where DeAndre Williams, whoever was in foul trouble, Houston went down on the block to him, and where he had single coverage, he still didn't force it to make the play. But I think that was 100% what the defense did to him. So he did a good job of reading, not forcing. But overall, he still was his normal self. It was just Memphis made a conscious effort on doubling him and not allowing him to really get any shots because he dominated them in the last game.
That's true. But what about his old boards get a putback? Reggie Chaney did that.
Yeah, his effort,
zero attempts. That means he didn't even get a putback layup attempt. Zero.
Effort was there. We don't have the stat sheet for tip passes, tip rebounds, deflections, and stuff like that. But the effort was there, which allowed and frees other players to get those offensive rebounds, to get in position to do that. But I think his effort, everything was there normal for Joanne from my eyes, from what I saw.
And to add on to Dayon's point, there was a couple of times when Juwan Roberts was right in the mix and the ball would get tipped up in the air and it would go out of bounds straight into the hands of some Memphis players. I think, again, that's just a testament. There was a much more focal point on trying to limit Juwan Roberts, just overall, like Dayon said, with how strong of a game he had in the first meeting back in Houston. But I wouldn't say it was from a lack of effort. It was just one of those times where he could have gotten some offensive boards. There was a couple times where he was fouled on being able to get a rebound, and it wouldn't count too. So I get your point, Chris, but I tend to agree more with Dayon.
Okay, I don't mind. Y'all can disagree, but once again, he had 0 field goal attempts. 0. A tip in counts as 1. He had 0. You guys know me. I love throwing the ball down low. I love getting double teamed in the post. But he had not even 1 tip in for an attempt. 0. How rare is that? But it also goes to this. He's come so far in his development that Memphis double teamed him, triple teamed him, and made him give up the ball. Who would have thought that just the start of this season that he'd have been a focal point that much to take him out of the game like that?
Yeah, speaking of start, I think Tremont got Houston out to a great start. He started the game so well in such a good rhythm. And what was the difference? Like early on in previous games, he would take a wide open three in which he didn't take a three, which he could have. He drove in, got his first bucket, then got a deflection, got a steal, and everything he got offensively was in the flow of the offense outside a couple shots. I just think in the second half, him and Jamal both could have been a little bit more aggressive during Memphis's run. I mean, credit Memphis, but at the same time, I still think in the second half he could have been just a tad bit more aggressive, not even looking to score, but just playmaking and just being aggressive, attacking the basket. But I think in the first half, he played lights out. I mean, he hit the three. And the first half, really, all of our guards played well and played well off each other. I think when they move the ball and don't have to go one-on-one and everyone's getting rhythm shots, quality shots, it makes Houston such a good team. And Tremont, he just did a great job in that first half. Defensively, he was everywhere, steals, block shots. He just really, really got the team off to a good start.
Real quickly, you have to put a pause in it. We have to remind everybody that's watching us live on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel or listening to audio only whenever you may be listening that this is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. The Saxenian Family is the primary sponsor of Let's Rage Coogs. Really, the entire season of the men's basketball season, now that the regular season is in the rearview mirror, and they will continue to be the primary sponsor heading into the American Athletic Conference postseason tournament and the NCAA tournament. Of course, we also like to say thank you to our other partners for today's show, beginning with Star Pizza in multiple locations across the Houston area. Be sure to visit starpizza.net online, where not only you can check out those 3 locations, but you can see the online menu and even order ahead of time, so you can just stop at any of those locations and take on the go, or maybe you're really hungry and just want to stop and eat on the way. And of course, we also want to say thank you to HOUNIL. Here's a message from Javier Francis and HOUNIL.
Hi, my name is Javier Francis, and I'm partnering with HOUNIL. Hey, we need the fans to go to HOUNIL.com to subscribe to our player-created content. Supporting Cougar basketball helps us players stay among the top teams in the country. Once again, that's HOUNIL.com to subscribe. Thank you, and go Coogs.
So once again, a big thank you to HOUNIL for being a sponsor on today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. Getting back into it. When it comes to, we mentioned Tremont Mark a little bit, let's get more into the strong first half that he had. I mean, he came out the gates on fire, and there's something about the Memphis Tigers that just seems to bring out the best in Tremont Mark when you look at historically in his career, and it was not an exception tonight in Memphis, Tennessee. His impact early on, especially when it just seemed like Memphis had no answer for him. His signature pull-up jumper in the mid-range, being able to attack, and really a key player. We've talked about it again all season long, but Houston has so many weapons. When Tremont Mark has it going, it really opens stuff up for Jamal Shead and Marcus Sasser.
No doubt. And it was great to see him aggressive at the start of the game. It was great to see him aggressive in the first half. It's just when he's aggressive like that, the team starting five, everybody has capability to score. So it's a pick your poison for their defense. So that's great to see Tremont being aggressive. He was aggressive on defense. He set the tone with steals, the block shot. He was everywhere. you know, so salute to him. And I think again, we've said it before in previous shows, he looks more and more healthy with that quad injury, seems further and further behind him. So if he contributes like this, it's just another option for Coach Sampson and staff to go to in the tournament.
Yeah, and really, when he shoots efficient, it really makes Houston such a threat offensively, because you know how much of an emphasis the defense is going to focus on Marcus, primarily from the guard spot, as well as Jamal. I think when he's efficient and making his shots at an efficient rate, whether it's a large quantity of shots, well, I want to say large, just more quantity of shots, because sometimes he doesn't take a lot of shots, but when he's efficient, it just opens up the floor and makes them such a better, because goes ties back into their ball movement. And then when they move the ball, because now you have to really close out on Tremont as well as everyone else, and just kind of it gets the defense out of whack and makes Houston just have more threats. And I think he did a really good job. I mean, really to start the game, allowing I really noticed him as well as Jarris and pretty much everyone is seeing the game really, really well. I think he just took what the defense gave him. Same with Jarris. I think especially early in that first half, he missed his first 2 threes, but there were quality looks that he should have and could have made. And he got another look, was a quality look similar in the first half. He pump fake, quick bounce, forced the help, made a pass to the wing, and I think it was Jamal Shed who made a 3, and that ignited, I think, in an 8-0 run. And so his ability to be decisive and recognize the game and take what the game is giving him and make a decision, it really just makes the team so much better. And I think Tremont did the same thing with that. I think the first half he took one heat check shot, and which got blocked from the 3-point. No, Tremont. Yeah, in the first half, he took one heat check shot in the first half. But other than that, I mean, his shot selection was so great.
And to kind of add on to your point real quickly, Kris, before you go and talk from Dale's point, top to bottom, there was a lot of different players. I think every player that played in the game made a play in this game against Memphis. Terrence Arsenal, he had a couple of freshman plays, but he had the big N1 on Kendrick Davis in the first half. Emmanuel Sharp hit open shots. He drew a big charge. I believe, I might be confusing, but Emmanuel Sharp made plays. Reggie Chaney came in there. I know he was kind of in foul trouble too, but he got a good being able to crash the boards and just being an impact on the game as well. When you look at all the players Javier Francis got in the game because of the big men that were in foul trouble too, that's something that, again, heading into the conference tournament and obviously bigger picture heading into the NCAA tournament, that's got to be a big, big positive for Houston heading into the meat and potatoes of March.
Each player did something positive for the team. Turnovers here and there, Terrence sloppy pass, and foul troubles hit the team in the first half for sure. And Memphis made all the free throws in the first half, so which is out of character. But then he also missed all the threes in the first half, which is out of character. So everything balanced out. One thing I think teams might do with Javier Francis is try to get him on the perimeter. That's not his strength. He still has a tendency to play with his hands too much, or his auto quickness is a step slow against guards. So I would like to see at some point in the conference tournament, let's see how the Cougs look defensively with JVA on the back line of a zone defense. But you don't have to worry about him being on the perimeter on a switch. You have him man the paint and swat anything that comes his way that way.
Yeah, turnover was definitely an issue. I think Tremont had one of them led to a turnover. I don't think the second one did. Jamal was able to get it back, and where he over dribbled the basketball in the press break and allowed the defense to kind of collapse, and he was kind of lost his balance and just threw it up. And so I saw the turnovers from a few different players, in which allowed Memphis to get back in it. But you got to credit Kendrick Davis. I mean, his ability to create contact, to use his size to his advantage, knowing the defense is going to try to block his shot, and being able to create contact to get to the free throw line. I mean, he did a great job of doing that, and as well as just making plays. He didn't have, I think, maybe one assist, but he still made a lot of plays, and most of his points came from the free throw line from his ability to do that, and he made timely, big 3-point shots. But I think overall, Houston, keeping the ball in front of them. That's why Coach Sampson went to the zone, because that's something we talked about in the last episode. Do we think it might be an issue? And I think it can be. And the recipe to beat Houston, you have to have stellar guard play and guards who can and make big shots.
And, touch on it. Reggie Chaney got 2 quick fouls, like a 10-second span. He got in foul trouble. He's just got he's much more effective on the perimeter defensively. He's got to avoid the fouls. Reggie, you're valuable. You're too aggressive. And Coach Sampson has said sometimes he'd rather have a player, try to tone him down than amp him up.
Yeah.
But sometimes Reggie, probably 2 times a game he gets a foul. They're like, Reggie, come on, man, you don't need that. You hurt the team because he's playing so well in other aspects. But those silly fouls, I hate saying that word, but keep him on the floor and he can help the team more on the court, obviously, rather than sitting on the bench with foul trouble.
And a few of them were kind of, I wouldn't say ticky-tack, but they were just bang-bang plays. I think one that I remember vividly is Emmanuel Sharp was harassing Alex Lomax. It just seemed like he was going to be really close to coming away with the steal. Lomax kept the ball, and somehow it got into the hands of, I believe it was Malcolm Dandridge, and Reggie Chaney picked up his foul just like that on a bang-bang play. And I can't remember if that was his second or third foul, but right after that, I believe that's when Javier Francis checked in.
And hey, salute to Malcolm Dandridge. Big man had a good game for Memphis. He made an impact. He had a positive impact for the Tigers without question.
DeAndre Williams did too defensively. It seems like he was in every single passing lane, especially in their press. I think he was the one player who really got Houston fits in the press break. But most of the part, Houston did a good job of breaking the press. Just a few times where they over dribbled, and but Houston, man, the defense was the difference, like it always is for their ability to stop teams from scoring and making it tough. And you got to credit Coach Sampson from breaking the norm and just making an adjustment and not being stuck in the system, but actually watching the game, doing what the game is telling you to do, which is go to a zone, force them to beat you from the outside. You go back to the first half, they didn't make any threes in the first half, and then they make some in the second half, but other than that, you still was able to be successful in the zone by keeping the ball out of the paint, keeping the ball in front of you, which allows you to contest every shot.
We'll quickly put a pin on it. I like to remind everybody that's watching live, thank everyone that's watching live. This is our most watched live episode of Let's Rage Coogs ever in history, and we're only getting started because next week will be the American Athletic Conference postseason tournament. So if this is your first time ever watching Let's Rage Coogs, hit the subscribe button on the Houston Round Bar Review YouTube channel and put that notification so you know when our Friday show is after the first round game in the American Athletic Conference postseason tournament. But this is Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Saxenian Family. They are the primary sponsor of LRC for the remainder of the men's basketball season. Of course, we'd like to say thank you to our other partners, beginning with Star Pizza with multiple locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop for pizza for Houston pizza here on starpizza.net. Make sure you visit them online so not only you can check out their online menu, but you can also order ahead so you can just pick up and head home, or order ahead and you can just sit down and enjoy your pizza much faster. And of course, we also like to say thank you to HOUNIL, and we'll send it over to Javier Francis and a message from HOUNIL.
Hi, my name is Javier Francis, and I'm partnering with HOUNIL. Hey, we need the fans to go to HOUNIL.com to subscribe to our player credit content. Supporting Cougar basketball helps its players stay among the top teams in the country. Once again, that's HOUNIL.com to subscribe. Thank you, and go Coogs.
Once again, that was JVA Francis, and we'd like to say thank you to HOUNIL for being a partner of today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. And on that note, I'll send it over to head coach Kelvin Sampson. Here's what he had to say post-game following Houston's 67-65 victory over the Memphis Tigers.
Bodies in the corners, got one in the slot, and allowed him to go one-on-one. And that in that situation, that's about as good a shot as you're going to get. The other key to the game was probably for the last month, we spent about 5 minutes every day, because we never zone. But we spend 5 minutes every day working on it. And I told him, you never know when we're going to need it. We've played it a possession or two here, possession or two there. Wasn't very good, but we kept working on it. The bye week, we worked on it every day, not very long. And then we'd have whatever our next game was, I didn't play it because our bread and butter is man-to-man. But to come in this gym and hold that team to 35% is a testament to our culture, our toughness, and how competitive our kids are.
And you touched on it, the way they came out in the second half, you'd be down by 5, and then you make a 10-0 run, and then you just regain control of that game.
Well, we had the mind-boggling turnover on the sideline there, and I thought I had.
You had called timeout, I heard you.
Yeah, and he didn't give it to me, but that happens, But last time I checked, the basketball court is a 94-foot slab of rectangular wood, right? Yes. And the sidelines have been where the sidelines are is in every gym we go in. So why did Jared step out of bounds twice when trying to make a jab step? The mistakes we made just boggles my mind. But that's secondary. Our kids know how to win. I've said that multiple times. To be 29-2 and 17-1 and winning every gym in the league is just proud of our program.
Does this give you a boost going into the postseason?
We'll see.
Coach, just on top of defense, like you mentioned, during that 10-0 run, I believe you held them scoreless for like 5 minutes of the game.
Yeah. Well, when you prepare for us, you prepare for man-to-man. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Penny and his staff knew exactly how they wanted to play. But our man-to-man was really good for a long time. The problem was we couldn't keep KD off the free throw line. He goes 16 for 18 today. Is that right? Am I right or wrong on that? Something like that. And then we didn't do a very good job at the free throw line. We had too many turnovers, unforced errors. Too many unforced errors, stepping out of bounds, throwing the ball. I mean, Memphis is really good with their traps and pressure, so they're going to force some turnovers. I get that. But it's the unforced errors that was had my eyes twirling around in my
Coach, you said it's the moments where no one's watching in comparison for the moments where everyone is. How proud are you of Shed and Assassin coming up with those really big plays and those really clutch moments?
Well, that's why we kept the ball in our hands, too. But I thought our inside guys didn't play great, but they battled. Every team's going to get a bump from playing at home, whether it's at Tulane or that environment in there tonight. The game management people at University of Memphis are to be commended. That was a tremendous environment. And we played at Oregon, 14,000. We played at Virginia, 13,500, 14,000. Cincinnati, we played at Cincinnati, same thing. This is the most raucous. I only imagine what they would have been like if this would have been a 5 o'clock game. Let them get a little Bill Street in them before they at 11 o'clock. Some of them might have come from church, I'm hoping. But this was, what this game was good for? It was good for the American Athletic Conference. It really was. Because it showed two really good teams battling on national TV. We won the game, but the American Athletic Conference and the University of Memphis was the winner too, because that was a tremendous atmosphere in there.
So once again, that was Houston Cougars head coach Kelvin Sampson. Talked a little bit about everything, and specifically when it came to that zone. Again, one of the reasons for that adjustment had to do with being unable to keep Kendrick Davis off the free throw line, and really, again, going back to the familiarity that the two teams have with each other and their strengths.
Yeah, KD was 6 for 18 from the floor, 11 for 12 from the free throw line. Memphis overall shot the ball well from the foul line, and the Cougs didn't. So that's another quirk of the game. And I had to look it up, but Chandler Lawson was 2 for 3 from 3. Before today, he was 3 for 7 for the whole season. 3 for 7 from 3. He made 1 in 3 different games. So he had not made more than 1 3 in a game until today. So just one of those rivalries bring out, strange things happen in rivalry games. And I saw it. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but this was the Tigers' first sellout at home this season.
Mm-hmm. And it was a legit sellout.
Well, that means they came to see the Cougs play too. So you're welcome.
Yeah, one thing that stood out to me, Coach Simpson talked about, and which I mentioned before we got into the clip, was how you prepare so much to see Houston's man-to-man defense. That when they throw the zone at you unexpectedly, it really creates so much confusion and it gets you out of rhythm because you just haven't prepared to see a zone from Houston. Didn't expect it, and so yeah, I mean he did a great job. I can't give him enough praise for his adjustment in doing that because I watch so many games and so many coaches just stick to doing what it is that they do and been doing all year instead of making the adjustment and what the game calls for. And so that was huge, man. And the defense is the difference, whether it's zone or whether it's man to man. Now teams have to prepare that Houston can play zone along with their man to man defense, and they have multiple looks. And so this defense is going to carry Houston throughout this tournament for sure.
And I just wanted to put on the screen for everybody. Thank you, Edison Joe, for the compliments on our show. And Dan, I want you to see it. Andy, you guys see it as well. We appreciate everybody. I mean, this we hit a high at one point with most live viewers doing the show. So thank you very much for supporting Let's Rage Cougs.
Absolutely. I can never say thank you enough. But I was going to say, and Dan, to add on to your comment about it, just adds an extra layer to Houston's versatility on defense. And we always knew from really a personnel perspective with how multi-faceted that all the players are individually. Well, now this just adds another layer to that versatility because it's not just man. They've shown that not only can they play zone, they can do it effectively. And again, this is a Memphis team in crunch time, a very talented Memphis team that they did it against, and they show that they can excel it.
And it's an example of the guys, the more they play zone, the better they do it. Because as Coach touched on it, there were times earlier in the season, the team looked just completely befuddled when they went to zone. But today, communication is so key. You got to know where your teammates are in the zone specifically, especially in the zone defense. But they did a very good job in the zone today against the Tigers.
Yeah, they really did. They looked comfortable. Right to Chris's point, they looked prepared. They looked like it was going to be something they used, and it was effective. I think Memphis' zone was kind of effective. Houston have seen quite a bit of zone, and I think going forward, whether it's in the American tournament or the NCAA tournament, if Houston has a game where all guards are hitting whether it be like all three guards, whether it be some of the guards off the bench as well, I think teams will look to play more zone to kind of slow the game down because Houston is such a threat when they're playing fast and playing in transition because they have multiple ball handlers, multiple three-point shooters, and even Jared is the X factor because he can create, and he's such an elite mid-range scorer.
But I gotta say, I think the book is out on Jarris and pump fakes.
Mm-hmm.
Kendrick got him again today. DeAndre got him again today on pump fakes. That's free throws. He sent him to the line. He's great help side shot blocker. You saw that down the stretch for sure. But Jarris, man, just keep on your feet, man. Don't go for those head fakes all the time. It's unnecessary.
It's not just Jarris. There's a couple of people on the team that keep going.
It's gotten worse, surprisingly. Yeah.
But real quickly, as we look to overall, kind of zooming out real quickly, with the win, Houston undefeated on the road. That is an impressive mark in and of itself. When you think about just at any level, college basketball, go 11.
Lost you, Andy. You might go out, yeah, because we can't hear you.
Check, test 1, 2. Can you guys hear me?
We're
back.
Now.
I'm back.
Yeah.
Oh, what I was gonna say, looking at a little bit of a broader picture, but with the win, the Houston and Cougars accomplished impressive feat, which is going 11-0 in true road games this season, undefeated on the road. And these were some hostile environments. Go back to December where they had to travel and beat, at the time, the number 2 ranked team in the country in Virginia. Of course, they had to beat Oregon as well on the road, and this just adds on to that layer. That's an impressive fact. But then look at it, the type of game that they ended up calling out. It's certainly going in the right direction when it comes to being battle tested heading into the conference tournament and, of course, the NCAA tournament.
And agreed for sure. It's hard when on the road. I don't
Doesn't
care
matter who it is.
exactly. I don't care if you're not in the best conference in basketball. It's hard to win on the road. Alabama lost at A&M yesterday. I don't hear people saying, "Oh, Alabama's a fraud now." It's hard to win on the road in conference play. So the Cougs did a great job going undefeated away from home. Who'd have thought that? The way they did it today, they found another way to get the job done. So salute to them. And they tied for the most wins in the AAC regular season, going 17-1. So just another accomplishment for this team. This team is special, and they're not done doing special things.
Man, for sure. I think this team definitely is special. And I think the road wins, we also got to mention, take into account that every gym they went to was sold out on the road.
Say that again, Dan. Say that again. Say that again.
Yeah, every night they played on the road, it was sold out, the biggest game. And so for them to be fully locked in and take care of business on the road, it means a lot. It's not an understatement. I think that's very important, which shows the toughness, the resilience, the IQ of this team. And I think the way they have done that will travel in the tournament, regardless of where it is, who has the bigger crowd. Houston's going to be prepared, and they're going to be ready.
I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is going to be the toughest crowd that they see from now until, with the exception of if somehow they ended up in the Kansas City bracket and we're in the same region as Kansas. I think this is probably the toughest road environment that they're going to face for the remainder of the season, however many games they play. And they passed the test. They played it with flying colors, and they really executed, whether it was in pressure situations. Again, this game had just about everything you would ask for the last game of the regular season, gearing up for a tournament preview, essentially, and they passed through with flying colors. Now, again, zooming out even more, looking at the college basketball landscape across the country, you mentioned, Chris, Alabama lost to Texas A&M. Alabama lost to Texas A&M. When it comes to Kansas, they also lost this weekend. Baylor lost as well, which is a segue, but I think I have a jinx going on because I praised those three teams on ESPN radio. I did, and of course they lose them this weekend. Houston won. Most importantly, they picked up another quad one victory, which, going back to national pundits, is something they always hold against the Cougars. Well, they only have, I believe it was 4 quad one wins heading into this game. Around that mark, it might be 4 or 5. They picked up another one. They're going to have a chance to get at least one more next week in the conference tournament if they do indeed see this Memphis team again in a neutral site game. But do you think that if Houston wins out, they've done enough to possibly be able to compete for number 1 overall? I think they've done enough to secure a number 1 seed, period, regardless of what happens from here until next Sunday.
I'm going to agree with alum Jim Nance. He mentioned during the broadcast. I think winning today secured the Cougs as a 1 seed, period. One of the 4 number 1 seeds. I think there will be enough folks on the committee that will count Kansas has whatever it is, 14, 15, whatever it is, quad 1 wins compared to Cougs 4 or 5, and they'll say 14-5. So they will give Kansas. I say give. Kansas earned it, the number 1 overall seed based on that. But the Cougs will be a number 1 seed. I think they locked it up today, unless they shock all of us. I'm not even sure it'll matter anymore if they lose Friday in their first game in the tournament. But beyond that, they're 1 seed going to the big dance.
Yeah, I think they're on the 1 seed line. I think if either Kansas or Alabama lose in their conference tournament, which is highly likely, then Houston has a chance, if they win out, to move into the number 1 overall seed. I think it'll take for one of those other teams to win their conference tournament to be the number 1 overall seed. So I think, in my opinion, Houston they're solidified on the 1 line. It just depends on where at, and I think they have a chance to be the number 1 overall seed if Alabama and Kansas don't win their conference tournaments.
As of now, would you still put those 2 teams ahead of Houston, looking at it from the committee perspective?
I will put Alabama because they beat Houston head up. But from Kansas, I get the resume in the Big 12, but I don't think so. But the national, I think the national could, but I think Houston is solidified, in my opinion, in that spot. But if Kansas wins the conference tournament along with all the quad teams, then I think they will and potentially could jump Houston.
I think what could help the Cougs is if Kansas lost their first game in the Big 12. Because how many losses does Kansas have? 6, 5, 6? What is it? I mean, I don't even know.
I believe it's 5. Let me check. Let me double check.
Five conference losses.
So if they lost in the
they have 6 total losses. Yeah.
Okay, 6. So they lost 5 in Big 12. Is that right? 4
and
5.
And that loss to Longhorns wasn't particularly close either.
Right. So I think if they lost to whoever they played in the opening round for them, that could open the door for the Cougs to pass them, assuming, of course, the Cougs do their job in the American tournament. Alabama's head-to-head win over Houston gives them the edge. I mean, head-to-head. Bama won. But if Bama stubs their toe in the opening round for them, the door opens. But it's easier to say Bama over Houston because of the head-to-head.
And I think Kansas has to win that conference tournament to get the number 1 overall seed, because say, for example, if Texas beats them, then I don't think Texas jumps Houston, even though they have a similar resume through Kansas and have a legitimate argument. But I think it'll take for Kansas to win that conference tournament to win the overall seed. I think Houston is kind of solidified, in my opinion, probably in that 2nd overall, and they can move up if Bama or Kansas, one of them, don't win their tournaments.
I think. Are you talking about overall seeding?
Yep.
Yeah, the Cougs are a 1 seed, period. Today wrapped it up in our opinion for sure. And I think Jim Nantz, he mentioned it during the broadcast that the Cougs, in his opinion, but based on the rules of the committee, will be in Birmingham because it's the closest city to Houston. As a 1 seed, the rules are you go to your closest destination, not Denver, as I saw early this morning on ESPN. Lunardi had them as one of the top 3 ones, but the bracket had them going to Denver. And I'm like, that's not closer than Birmingham. So I don't know if Lunardi says one thing and the other folks do the bracket. I don't know, whatever. But the Cougs and Bama can both be in Birmingham, but just go to different regions after the first 2 rounds.
Absolutely. Now, on the topic of Jamal Shead, let's hear a snippet of what we had to say before we wrap things up here on this episode of Let's Reach Cougs.
Last possession.
I knew Coach wouldn't call a timeout because, we've been in that situation before. And he trusts me. And we've talked about it, a lot of memories come to mind, especially that Wisconsin game. It always comes to mind in moments like that where, I got to look at the time, just push the pace. And, just God willing, I was able to make that shot.
When did you look up and see how much time was left?
Right when KD made the layup. I had a little clock going in my head right when I caught the ball. So, was kind of looking for Marcus, was looking for Tremont. Juan set a good screen for me, looked for Jairus. And nobody was really open, so, I just ended up shooting it.
So you looked for everybody but you?
Oh, yeah. Definitely. Definitely. When you play with a group of guys like this, you definitely look for them in those type of moments.
You've obviously had a lot of big wins. You'd already secured the league, but a win like this in this environment, what does it mean to you guys?
I feel like it was more fun than anything. Memphis is a great crowd, and I don't think we played in an environment like that all year besides maybe Virginia. And Temple had a really good crowd. But, that was just fun, being able to win in this type of environment is just always fun, especially with these group of guys.
Jamal, can you talk about the resiliency of the team when Memphis made their run? They went up by 5, and then you guys went on a 10-0 run, and you held them scoreless for over 5 minutes of that game. Can you talk about what went into that?
Just fighting back. A lot of us were tired. We were talking to each other, just keep pushing. We're almost there. And, that shows how connected we are. We talk to each other, we push each other. We came out on top. So, we showed a lot of fight.
So, once again, that was Houston Cougars guard Jamal Shead. And, Chris, you've mentioned the CBA broadcast, the all-time legendary UH alumnus in Jim Nantz. Well, he spoke to me after the game.
Jim, we got to start with the game. What a crazy ending to the tune-up. It was certainly a tune-up to the NCAA tournament. Take me through calling that game.
I'm sorry, my heads are still a little bit in the clouds, after that one. It was a fantastic game. Memphis is really good, and I admire what Coach Hardaway's done with their side. They could have easily won this game, and they gave Houston fits. But to win a shot at the buzzer between all this atmosphere, and they're number one, a big target on, to beat you. To win a game like this, going into the NCAA tournament, conference tournament, it's huge for Houston. It's just huge. And for me personally, to be able to call a game where my alma mater wins at the buzzer, that's a big moment. It's a big moment.
I can't imagine, but obviously now being able to see the number one team in the country up close and personal, what stood out to you about them, about their defense, really?
Well, I think this right here just absolutely locked up a number one seed no matter what happens in the conference tournament. It was a big win for Houston. Kelvin's just amazing. He's just an amazing coach. That's all I can say. We were so fortunate to have him and that family behind this program. They've been the greatest blessing to come our way in a long, long time. They've restored the glory, and we owe them a huge, huge thanks.
Kind of last question, but heading into the NCAA tournament, what do you think the ceiling of this team is? Of Houston, the ceiling of Houston's team.
Absolutely done after today, a number one seed. Now, regardless of what happens in the conference tournament, we'll be a number one seed. We'll play in Birmingham the first 2 rounds, and we'll take it from there. I would expect that we'll be the one seed in the bracket that feeds into Louisville, Kentucky, and we'll give people a really great run, maybe all the way to April 3rd. Maybe close to midnight, the dream story ends with the Nets coming down for the hometown team.
A big thank you to Jim Nance.
That's what I'm talking about, man. Heck yeah.
Only on what? On what show? You're not
Let's raise Coogs, baby. Great job, Andy Yanez. Awesome.
But we're running out of time because I have to head towards the airport and catch my flight heading back to Houston. But takeaways, Jamal Shed or Jim Nance have to say, obviously, that's high praised from the biggest UH alumni there is out there.
I'm just proud of you, man, for getting that those comments from Jim Nance. You could tell down after when Jamal made that bucket, Jim's UH pride came through a little bit during his down the stretch there. But so
I haven't heard the call yet. I can't wait to hear it.
But it was great, outstanding, and I'm surprised he said Louisville region. So that's interesting. That's a little wrinkle.
From hearing him speak, I feel like he has Houston over Kansas in the terms of number one overall when it comes to seeds.
Oh no,
I would say,
but it's strange because Bama is closer to Louisville than Kansas City, I think. So I'm not sure how that'll work, but it could be the other way around. But hey, I don't want to go to New York. That's all because of distance. Not because it'll be a problem for the Cougs. I'm just talking because of distance. But other than that, salute to you, sir. Great job getting Jim Nance part of this interview on Let's Rage Cougs. Outstanding.
Dan, any final takeaways as we wrap things up?
Yeah, look, Jamal just said how fun he had and how fun it was for the team to go out and get the victory in the hostile environment. So I think this team is just locked in. They see what the potential of this team, and so I'm just happy to see that to be a Cougar alum like Jim Nance, like all of us, and to be along for the ride. I'm really proud right now.
I'll just comment. I'll leave it with no context. Won't it be great next year to be in a conference and lose 9 games and still be in the top 10?
Yeah,
but Houston
for sure.
will be in the Big 12 next year. We'll be that luxury next year. Sure. Once again, from the final, if you haven't noticed, from inside the FedEx Forum, the final score: the Houston Cougars, number 1 Houston Cougars, victorious in the final game of the regular season over Memphis, 67-65. Jamal Shed was the hero of the game. He had the buzzer-beating jumper to beat Memphis, and now the Houston Cougars turn their attention to the conference tournament in Fort Worth, the American Athletic Conference tournament. They will play on Friday afternoon as the number 1 overall seed in that tournament. Until then, for Dayon Dunlap, Kris Gardner, thank you guys for joining me. You can follow those individuals on their respective social media platforms. You can follow me on Twitter at @Ayonis_5. Thank you so much for everyone that joined us, our highest watched ever episode of Let's Rage Cougs. And as always, Dayon, you get the final word.
Let's go, Coogs. Appreciate all the support, baby. Let's go.